Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. Welcome to Web3 Warriors, episode 34, featuring Charles Mbata from the NaijaDAO, co-founder of the NaijaDAO. Welcome, Charles. How you doing?
I'm doing well, brother. Well, thank you, David, for having me. It's a pleasure being here. Just want to make sure messed with my camera a little bit.
No problem. Yeah, I know we had slight camera issues. We got it all sorted though.
Make sure I'm still in sync with the frames and all that stuff. But it's a pleasure to be here. Saturday morning. Just finished a cup of coffee. I'm ready to vibe, man.
That's what's up.
Shout out.
That's what's up. Thank you for joining, and it's a pleasure to have you here. You know, we actually met for the first time in New York. I'm going to ask you about that. I don't know if you even remember at Arts' event. Yeah. No, it was inspiring just hearing, you talk about the NaijaDAO and what you guys are doing there. So without further ado, welcome everybody to episode 34. I'm David Karoma, your host. I go by Chrome in the metaverse. And for episode 34, we're going to be talking about DAOs, and really specifically how DAOs can be used to kind of bring together international collaboration, like minds, maybe people from similar backgrounds who want to work together and, network with each other, and really just looking at how DAOs are creating a really interesting avenue for creators and artists in this creator economy to find success, to find each other, and to network and coordinate. As I've said before on this show, I am a member of a couple DAOs, specifically that I'm kind of volunteering and working with on a week-by-week basis. First of all, with the Dream Conduit, which is an actual nonprofit 501c3 DAO that is focused on actually helping creators of all kinds onboard into this Web3 NFT blockchain space. It's really rewarding, a lot of onboarding work, just really cool conversations that we have every week with people from around the world that want to know about what NFTs are about and just want to be part of the conversation with the NFT community, because there are always interesting, innovative projects that are being built and new concepts being discussed, and really just the bleeding edge of technology on the blockchain, because there is so much left to be done. And then the other one I'm working with now is the Storytime DAO, which is a little bit newer, and we're really trying to be an incubation and aggregation kind of platform for stories and projects to be able to get whatever they need to actually get their projects minted and just have more cool works of art on the blockchain. So that's just an example of how DAOs can form around a concept, around an idea. And again, to define DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. I shouldn't assume all of our listeners are aware of that. So definitely the goal of decentralized autonomous organizations is to take the best elements of the blockchain, which are, transparency, accountability, maybe even automation, certain things being automated through smart contract, and having that all kind of transparent, and the governance of your organization using that technology to the best of their ability collectively. And that can be different depending on what you're trying to do with your DAO, right? And different DAOs can have different voting structures, different levels of decentralization, quote unquote, depending on how they want to have their governance structured. So it's a really interesting space. It is still a lot of things being defined as we go. I think in America, I believe there's only 2 or 3 states that actually acknowledge DAOs as a legal entity. So there's a lot of work being done on that front as well. And on that point, I know Charles is actually joining us from Philly, which is really cool, to be a co-founder of a Nigerian NFT community DAO, the NaijaDAO, and to be located in Philly. So we're going to talk about that kind of international vibe and how DAOs allow for this kind of platform of collaboration. So it's really exciting, and it really is no limits to what can happen. A DAO is an organization, so it can be a corporation, it can be a nonprofit, it can be a lot of different things depending on, again, the aim of the DAO. But in this creator economy, in this space where it is still difficult to get your work seen, to get heard, and to really make an impact, in the wider sphere, you still have to drive traffic to your art, to your creations, right? And in that sense, DAOs create this opportunity to pull, artists of similar values or similar aims together to be able to help each other, to collaborate, network, find opportunities to build and grow, and then most importantly, promote each other and actually have that network effect, which we know is powerful on social media, to get your art out there, get your NFTs out there, and show people what you're working on, and to support each other and connect and build. So that is in a nutshell, what DAOs are about, what's possible with DAOs, and why many of us in this blockchain and Web3 space want to work within DAOs and want to work within this new organization structure that hopefully can get rid of some of the more toxic and predatory elements of the old Web2 and traditional kind of economic structures or corporate structures, and really flatten it and maybe create a lot more accountability and transparency, and importantly, compensation for everybody involved, rather than just a few at the top. So with that synopsis, I do want to again welcome you, Charles, to the show, to Web3 Warriors. And maybe before we get into NaijaDAO and all of the amazing things you guys are doing over there, just give us a little bit of background. You know, what brought you to Web3? What brought you to the blockchain? And how are you finding it?
Yeah, thank you, David, for having me. Again, my name is Charles Mbata, one of the co-founders of NaijaDAO. Chuma Anabado is a brilliant artist, also in Nigeria. Is my co-founder. He's not able to be here today, so I'm going to be speaking on his behalf. Um, Web3, what brought me to Web3 space? So I'm a collector, right? So I've been collecting artworks for some years now, but really Afrocentric driven work. So work that I relate to. So growing up in Nigeria, West Africa, I came over, to the United States like over 25 years ago, 20 years ago. But so being out in the West and looking at some of the artworks out here, but some of the things that I resonate with, some of the artworks that remind me of my childhood back home,
Nice.
not being physically, I was connected with artworks that I'm like, man, this is really, I remember a Masquerade, because Chuma Nabado has this brilliant work he does with, line arts with masquerades. So I really got attracted to that, and I started collecting those type of work. So not just his work, from other artists from Nigeria, West Africa in general. So just being a collector in the space, prior to NFTs, collecting by the physical artworks. So when in conversation with Truman, one of those conversations, he told me, "Hey, have you heard about, this thing that's popping up now, NFTs? I'm going to venture into." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then, the conversation, so I started looking into researching about NFTs, because I was really doing buying crypto prior to that, buying all the coins and dabbling into the meme coins and all that stuff. And then when he mentioned it, I was like, man, that's a no-brainer, because I've always been a fan of the blockchain technology, following the
Nice.
space, looking at what the trends are. Because I come from a place where there's a lot of dysfunctionality growing up, and being in the United States where it's a bit more organized, things a bit more functional. There's laws and rules and stuff. I always thought about, if the politicians, the people there, cannot really fix that, there might this technology might have a lot of impact in a place like that, where you could automate some of this, especially what you mentioned about DAOs. So some of those things can be self-governance, without relying on a human being that might be corrupt or have some type of political or religious bias. Those things might help, create some type of orderliness back there. So I've always been thinking about it from that standpoint, and that's how come I gravitated towards the technology. I gravitated towards NFT because it makes sense. And we're going to talk about really the impact, like it's really powerful stuff happening where, you know, growing up, we'll watch Western media and movies. And when I came to the United States, I also saw how Africa was portrayed through the Western media.
Right.
And I was like, not really how it is, because I'm from there and live there. So there's certain things, the big cities, it's not all kids hungry. Begging for food. There are successful people back there. There are roads, there are skyscrapers, and all that stuff. So I don't really see much of that portrayal when I came to when I came to the United States. So it's really something powerful that now that the youths or the people, the artists, the creators out there are the one actually, telling the story or painting what the culture is like, and it's being put on the blockchain. So it's not like, it's not someone else is not doing it for them. They are doing it. So
Right.
that's really something powerful, and it's on the blockchain, so nobody can change. So my kids can 200 years from now, 100 years from now, go back and say, okay, this is what masquerades are like, even if they don't practice them anymore. So those things are really something that I'm really, proud about. So yeah, that's how I came into the space, and I've been, enjoying every bit of it. This, bear market, bull market, all that stuff, it's part of it. But
Yeah.
just the core belief or sense that this technology is actually helping impact people in Africa, it's just amazing.
Most definitely. That's awesome. And I share your background as far as actually collecting real art and then realizing, oh, so I can purchase art from artists on the blockchain, support these artists
Absolutely.
essentially the exact same way. And now there's no limits to the amount of art I can hold because I don't have to worry about having space on my walls, right? Like,
Absolutely.
where's the lose?
Absolutely.
There's no lose. That's a win-win-win, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And it's cool. So you're saying some of the artists that you were already purchasing art from, they were the ones that actually brought you into NFTs, and you had dabbled in cryptocurrencies prior, but not really looking at like the smart chain or the smart contracts and the NFT side of things.
Yeah, I've just been buying the meme coins, just following the trend, buying the Shibas, the Doge coins, watching the
Nice,
watching them gain and watch. I made some money from some of them, you know. I
nice,
lost some of the money too, but
right?
that was really my focus. But when I started understanding the impact of the technology is actually when I started seeing people selling their artworks, but they're physically in Nigeria, like the Osinachis, the Owos, the Afro Trade. I see you have it as a PFP there.
Yeah,
And when I started understanding that paradigm shift, I was like, wow, this is powerful. And then I was like, man, you know, I then started studying it, learning it, being on the clubhouse spaces 247. My wife thought I was crazy at some point, but I was just soaking it up every day. And then it hit me. I was like, man, I would see artists coming to the space. There were people who would start asking the question, oh, so what's the utility? What's the process and all that? I'm like, hmm. And I'm like, I don't think these artists are really built like are really built for that those type of scrutiny. Let alone the people in Africa. Oh, then that we start talking about accents. People I can't hear you very well. That's where the idea came about. And I was having a conversation with Chuma. I was like, man, we have to create a space for Nigerian artists where they can come and show their work and talk about their work, even if it's in their local pidgin language that we speak.
That's just it.
And
Make it accessible, right?
exactly, and boom, that was it. We created a clubhouse room. And then the next day we had a few days after we have like 400-500 people on it. We were like, man, this is people that really, and most of the artists are joining. And then we felt the need to start hosting spaces, start teaching, onboarding, and then it grew from there. It was just like now we need to put a structure in, start employing people to kind of help. So now we didn't, it wasn't called NaijaDAO initially, it was just Nigeria NFT community. But along the line, we started seeing a lot of problems that we could solve being a DAO. And that's how come we made a decision to now change the name to like Niger DAO. And that's what we're working towards. So we're gonna get into that. But it was just more of like a need to create a safe space for Nigerian artists. There's a lot of artists, David, that they create brilliant work, but they can, not all of them, but they can't speak English to say
Hmm.
they can communicate in pidgin language and all that stuff. But they're very brilliant. Their work is if they tell you the details that goes into their work, you'll be amazed. This is
Right.
stuff that takes weeks and weeks. So we don't feel like those people should be left out of the conversation, especially when it comes to Web3, and that's why we exist pretty much.
That's amazing. And that is filling a huge gap. And, I hope to see a future where every African country has their own DAO for their NFT artists to collaborate and connect. And I know, like you mentioned briefly, even within West Africa, I think there are people benefiting from the fact that the NaijaDAO exists, right? And there are people purchasing art
Absolutely.
from other, not just Nigerian artists, right?
Yeah, we're
Um,
gonna get into that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
for
for
sure, for
sure.
sure.
You touched on OWO, so I did want to just share that because that was definitely one of the most inspiring NFT projects that I was able to be a part of. And, I definitely recommend everyone to go check out Afro Droids because to this day, the revenue from the sales, even on the secondary, go to support this amazing Dream Catchers Academy, which is
Absolutely.
an NGO in Nigeria that has benefited by, I don't remember the exact amount, but a lot of money that they've got donated from the Afro Droids project. So Afro Droids minted 12,000 of these awesome Afro Droids, and they sold
Mhm.
out, I think, within a day, which is amazing. And then, a huge chunk of the revenue went to support this girls' school, Dream Catchers in Nigeria. And so that's just one case in point of how, a single project can make such a huge impact and impact the lives of young women and people in the community in general, because those families are doing better. Everyone's doing better because these kids can go to school and have reliable, access to technology. So definitely wanted to promote that and ask anybody to go check out Afro Droids because they're very accessible and very cool. Got a couple
Yeah,
myself.
and it's just to add to that, there's so many of what he's doing. The impact is going to create a lot more Afro Droid projects in the near future. Think about it. I mean, he's pulling kids off the street that don't have any shelter, giving them shelter, giving them education, teaching them about arts, teaching them about NFT, teaching them about technology. So imagine like 10 years from now, some of those kids are going to come up and those are the people that are going to write, they're going to write the history of the culture. They're going to tell you what's happening currently in the culture. You're not going to get it from the media. You're going to get it from the kids that are living there. So it's beyond powerful. And this guy, he's over there. He made
Right.
this. He didn't have to travel to the United States or Germany or anywhere, the Western world. He's over there, and that's through the powerful connection or possibility of the blockchain
That's
technology. So
right.
that's why I think it's that's when I started understanding that shift, that impact. I was like, wow, this is powerful.
Yeah, that's next level. That's what we're here for. That's what the Web3 Warriors like to focus on as well. And because it's really the creator economy, it's really empowering artists, it's empowering creators, and like you say, connecting them on a global scale through direct peer-to-peer transactions. I purchased 2 of these Afro Droids at Mint, and that money went direct to Owo and his team, and they went direct to the Dreamcatchers organization. And I can feel good about making that donation, but not just a donation. I got something for it. I got some cool art. The art has been a gift that keeps giving. They dropped some cool voxels, wearables that I can wear in the
Yeah,
metaverse. They've dropped droids, these additional, secondary assets that you can claim if you had an Afro droid. The
right.
drones, I mean, right? And then they created those little voxel versions of the drones. So now I have a drone
Mhm.
in voxels that I can use in the metaverse. So it's really cool. It has actual, interesting artistic and creative elements and digital assets, but most importantly, it's making a real difference on the ground. So speak to
Absolutely.
that point you just made about peer-to-peer and the international scope of the technology, right? And how Web3 makes it so easy to just pinpoint, direct support an exact artist or even an exact community if a project is set up with the opportunity to really take that and invest in it, So how is the NaijaDAO kind of positioning itself to, I guess, make the most use of that technology?
Yeah, we're just doing a lot of things in that aspect. We are coordinating a lot of exhibition events that you know pretty much exposing these artists that are physically there. They're not able to travel to NFT NYC, for instance, but we're actually putting their work out in front of those and community members of NFT NYC because we just had an exhibition called Metanoia. We selected 15 artists from the group. Definitely wanted to push a lot of, we made a conscious effort to put a lot of female artists, up and coming unknown artists on that platform, and we displayed their work in 3 countries simultaneously during the NFT NYC in New York, Kenya, and then in Nigeria, Lagos as well. And people had the opportunity to actually purchase their work during that exhibition. So creating exposure for them. That's really what we exist to kind of bring out this artists and share their work to the rest of the world. And in addition to that, the DAO structure that we're trying to put together, we're currently looking at creating a smart contract to kind of help not just a membership DAO, but some of the criteria that some of the issues that we saw in the process is that our community has about 99% of creators and one less than 1% or 1% collectors,
Hmm.
and we it's a problem that we've been trying to tackle for the past 6 months in terms of how do we get more, not just, I think we've done fair amount of job in terms of the visibility, trying to bring, because we always tweeting about the work and putting the works up in other collaboration, other events and all that. But we feel the need to kind of solve this the core problem that so that they don't really they don't have to rely on other sales from other people. That's a plus because we always have that if their work is exposed properly. they will get that. But internally, we're just trying to see how we can create more liquidity amongst ourselves, more purchase. So part of the criteria that we're putting in the smart contract is for you to be a member of the DAO. You have to purchase a work of a DAO member, which is community, one of our community creators, our members, and also be able to own one of their work or you automatically. So in order for you to just have to purchase one of the members' work. So that way, um, we're able to get more traction in terms of purchases and being able to support ourselves internally. Then if the external aspect of it comes into play in terms of other people from different parts of the world, probably that's fine. But we just need to start doing the work ourselves internally to kind of get more purchases and all that. So that's some of the problem that we're seeing. I think us being in me being over here in the United States and making some of the bigger collaborations because we're working with Disrupt Art now. We're trying to set up you
Oh,
know
nice.
yeah, I was just speaking at the event in Cincinnati this past month or so. So they're trying to collaborate with us to help us put an infrastructure together that one, that's going to solve some of this purchasing issue, some of the collector issues, and two, we're trying to get educational materials from them that we could translate into local languages, and we'll be able to reach more creators out there using
Nice.
getting to them in their local dialect, so that way they understand what NFTs are, without even having to understand English or just in their own local language. So those are the two key big things that we're kind of working on. Current conversation with the folks at Disrupt Art, and they're really eager to support us. We had a space with them the other day, a couple of weeks ago, and we're just following the conversation. So yeah, that's
That's
some of the aspects that we're looking at, and we're also partner with a lot more teams that are willing to support. I was just trying to finalize terms with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. There's a lot of angles I know in that space for sure. And I like that you touched on the fact that you have like 99% creators and only like 1 or less than 1% collectors. And I think that is a common issue in DAOs that are focused on trying to help NFT artists sell their art, right? The artists come flocking, but the creators maybe don't. That's an interesting avenue as far as having that requirement to purchase a piece of art in order to join the community. And I guess if someone's already a collector of your artist, would they just be able to join without purchasing another one, or would they have to purchase a new one?
That's a good question. I think for the purpose of what we're trying to do, it's gonna be like freshly minted.
New ones, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, with the wallet in the pool and in the part of the snapshot or whatever. You're a dev guy. You sound like a dev guy, but yeah.
Wow, just a collector. I'm more a collector, really. I just ask these questions because I've been doing, more DAO formation than I care to admit, and it's a lot of random questions pop up in my head.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's a very good one. But I think for the purpose of what we're trying to do, it's just gonna be the people in the pool, the work that they minted and all that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe you mint it underneath an actual collective wallet, essentially. Like it's going to be a NaijaDAO wallet with minted
Yeah,
artworks
yeah,
under there that you
yeah,
purchase from. Yeah, that makes sense. That's really cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely like to check that out when you have that artist or that
Yeah,
wallet
yeah, yeah.
up and ready.
We the smart contracts are done. We're just going through. We're trying to get into auditing now. The auditing the works are not cheap. Yes.
Man, devs are not cheap. They're in high demand. Maybe not quite as
And,
high as they were last year, but they're still in pretty high demand.
yeah, but funny enough, I just need to give him a shout out. Sam Ogu is a dev from our community as well,
Nice.
and he was being very gracious in terms of taking the lead on that aspect. And he's a brilliant guy, very sharp mind. We're trying to get him to kind of do more, I know, just to kind of help bring up more devs at his
Yeah,
level.
that's another shortage,
So
right? Shortage of devs too.
yeah, we're gonna get into that. So we actually had we invited a very a smart contract guru called he's a buddy of um Francis with DC. So we had a first talk meeting. So he kind of we brought a couple of devs. Sam was one of them. He was a co speaker. Francis was the main speaker for that event. We just talked about smart contracts, and it was a very well received event that NaijaDAO hosted. So it was a high level stuff. They really lost most people at some point. But what we're trying to do, 2.0 of that, is to kind of get people that are interested in learning, mainly community members, not people, community NaijaDAO or African community members that are interested in learning more dev or advancing, and having a bit more session with them, just to kind of advance it a little bit more. So that's the 2.0. That's in the works coming. He's kind of, we're talking terms and him prepared documents and how to kind of structure the line. So that's what we're doing. So from that angle, NDAO is just not, we're just trying to promote our members on all front. Dev is something that you pointed out, is something that it's definitely needed in high demand, and the more devs we have within the community from our culture, it's easier to kind of get concepts that are get concepts across. It's easier. They're more approachable. You can, if a guy is thinking about a brilliant idea, he's easier. He can communicate more with a community member than a foreigner. So I think it's really important on that front, and also just to get people to do cool stuff and be able to collaborate and cool projects that doesn't have to depend on a guy just charging them 20 grand to do it.
Right,
But
exactly.
would help expedite those cool ideas coming to fruition. Not being, it won't die because you can't afford it there. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah,
A true
yeah,
collaboration space and being able to actually do as much as possible in house through the community, right? It's what it comes down
exactly.
to. Yeah.
Without having to
Um,
reach out to me that's going to charge you an arm and a leg. And I can't afford that. And the dream dies. So yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Can't have that. So I want to touch on something else you mentioned about NYC. So as I mentioned, I was at the arts event in NFT.NYC, and
Oh,
a
for
really
real?
cool hip hop show that you sponsored, or your NaijaDAO, I should say, sponsored.
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
inspired, and that's really what planted the seed of wanting to make sure I can get you guys on the show at some point.
Oh,
Just the fact that there was that international scope, and you were really speaking directly to the kind of work that's done in Nigeria by NFT artists and the impact it has on the community. It was really inspiring. And then to hear that you had, that happening in NYC, and then you also had Lagos and Kenya kind of simultaneously doing a type of art show or symposium. How exactly did that work, and how did the participants find it? Like, were they really interested in the fact that this was happening in alignment with NFT.NYC, and there was this kind of global scope to it? Yeah, how did you promote it and execute that?
Oh yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one. I don't think, not to brag, I'm not sure there's any other African community that is doing, what we're doing on that front. Because what we did was, so I was invited to be a speaker at the NFT NYC, and we felt that we could use that opportunity to really push artists. And if you look at the people on that feature list, always there. So we featured one of his work, but we wanted to use the big names and the unknown names, kind of bring everybody up. So we started planning it about 3 months ago. We had members of the Kenya NFT community that reached out. We talked to them and say, "Hey, this is what we're planning to do," and they were like, "Yeah, we'll help you guys out." So we got that locked in. A lot of coordination. Lagos, we have to find a location. We have to find a location in Kenya. We started putting ads out. Um, and some of these location people, some of them are gracious enough to donate their venue for us. We just had to pay for other things like drinks and the strings and all that stuff. But
For
we
sure.
started coordinating. We had a group chat of Telegram, WhatsApp. Everybody was assigned tasks. I wasn't, of course, I was going to be in New York, so all the New York aspect of it, I kind of took care of it. Chuma was more like he's the artist, he's the brain behind, the artwork selection and all that, curating it and all that stuff. I was more of like, in charge of the venue in New York that we were with collaborating with the arts. I reached out to arts because I was in NFT NYC the previous year. I was an arts event, so he's like my go-to bro in New York for anything event wise. So I
Nice.
reached out. Yeah, he told me he was having something at a Brazilian house. I was like, sure, want to help sponsor and make that happen. In terms, he gave us some exposure. He was like, good, all good. We shook hands, agreements. So we started working on that. And I of course, visited the spot, shared with the team what the outlay is going to be. Everybody was in approval, and then we started putting slideshows together, sending it to the team. The team reviewed it and all that. So the whole concept of it, David, was just, we're just trying to dip in the conversation. The narratives is changing, you know, the narratives, storytelling from a creative perspective was changing from just drawing your art, now going into the technology space, Web3 space, and we just wanted to make a statement that these are African artists in Africa that are part of this conversation. They might not be here physically, but they know about NFT NYC. They know what's happening. They know about Web3 technology. They're the adopters. They're one of the top trading crypto trading countries in the world in Africa. So they know what's happening. They appreciate the technology, and these are some of their artworks. Just you guys have to get to appreciate it, and it's coming from them. It's not from any Western media. This is what they are represented, and we just wanted to have it be part of the mix in NFT NYC, and also not just in Kenya as well, and in Lagos as well. So it took a lot of coordination. There's a lot of cost to it. Obviously, you were there in New York, but we pulled it through, and it's something that we're very proud of, and we're looking forward to next year. We've already started having conversations for next year's event and how we can make it bigger. You mentioned something that's really important. So I think our existence to some degree has also spun out NFT communities. Kenya NFT community is one of them. Ghanaian NFT community is another one of them
Yeah.
that most of them are part of our community as well. So we kind of always reach out to them. I was just talking to Kofi the other day, a few days ago about,
Nice.
yeah, Kofi. Actually, I was talking to him about a contact that reached out to us that's coming to Ghana. I'm like, yes, we have people in Ghana. Reach out to Kofi. I just made the connection. So we're always in connection with them. So what we're trying to do, kind of like without spitting the beans, but what we're trying to do next year is actually trying to get all this community together and trying to do a big event, not just being an attaché event, but being the main event. Like these are African communities, NFT communities hosting this event. Come and look at our artworks, come and look at our events, come and enjoy our culture, our music, drinks, and all that stuff. That's something that we're planning. And yeah, I know you touched on it, but so I think it's going to be very powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that does sound very exciting, and I definitely would want to be a part of that as well. And looking at the
sure.
diaspora and looking at what's the potential is, we've seen African NFT communities, we've seen specifically African American. We talked to the Black Metaverse here. We've had Kofi on the show a couple times. His
Sure.
use case around the masks, the African 3D masks, and the way that he's not only made really beautiful works of art, but actually gone through the meticulous effort to preserve the stories that are attached to each one of those
Sure.
masks is just amazing. Like there's so many different angles of why that's impactful, from the community impact to the cultural historical impact to the individual impact for Kofi himself, who has been able to now travel to Germany where he's done like real world art shows based on those masks that he's created, and I think he's even 3D printed some now, so they've
Oh, yeah.
become phygital masks essentially, where there's the
Correct.
digital one on the blockchain and there's actual physical versions of them as well. So that's just
For sure.
super inspiring. Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting because, and not to say, of course, there are culturally relevant, NFTs, I'm sure, from different corners of the globe. But looking at Africa, right, looking at the cultural history that we know and that is often dark in the more recent times, whether
Right.
it's colonialism, whether it's slavery, whether it's Christianity and Islam, kind of, giving us a thumb down on our cultural heritage and really trying to,
Mm-hmm.
stigmatize our cultural heritage.
Yeah.
I feel like we're at this real inflection point, and not just Africans. I think a lot of indigenous cultures are at this inflection point as well, where not only do we have to actively try to save the cultures that we were at risk of losing, whether it's languages, whether it's symbolism and art around the masks, around other culturally relevant symbols, we were at risk of losing all that. And in comes blockchain, right? In comes NFTs, and in comes the opportunity to not only preserve them, but to actually present the entire cultural relevance of these items, you know, in your own language and in your own way, and not have them be appropriated, not have them be, you know, stolen and monetized without your, you know, approval. So it's just so perfect, I find right now, and it's a big part of the inspiration behind the show, that this happens to come along at this time when indigenous cultures are like, no, like colonialism was messed up, we need to repair the wrongs of the history. Nobody else cares, nobody else wants to take the effort to actually do the work that's required to repair that history, so we have to do it ourselves, and now we have this new tool to actually let us do it, you know.
Absolutely, you bring up a good point, and you know, something of current relevance with the Queen passing, rest her soul, has brought up a lot of consciousness about this issue that you brought up, because a lot of artworks were stolen from Nigeria, and there was a recent conversation that happened at the Benin Bronze that the Nigerian government is demanding it back from the British. It's in the British Museum, and we're saying, hey, it's okay for it to be displayed there, but we have to give it to you to display it there.
Right.
From the real sense of it, it was stolen. Okay, we don't want to take it back to hide it. We want to show it to the rest of the world. That's fine, but just admit the fact that it was stolen in the first place, and they haven't done that.
Right.
So again, the generation now, they're very conscious of what's going on, and they're not, you know, for lack of better word, they're saying screw that. This is my culture. This is what my great grandfathers, you know, this is what they related to. It's no longer, we're not looking at the mask as something demonish anymore. No,
Exactly.
you know, no, we're not. You know, that was part of the brainwash. That's okay. It
Exactly.
happened. But the youths now are not looking at it that way anymore. They're like, okay, that's part of my culture. You can call it whatever you want, but that's my culture.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
real heritage.
now we're reckoning with it. We're re-identifying ourselves with it. So that's that's what Kofi's doing. His work is very powerful from that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we also did Chuma also has a max collection that we dropped as well, that we added audio poets to it.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah, that was
powerful.
beautiful. I remember that mask. I
Yeah,
actually been meaning to reach out to them because I think it got unlisted and they need to relist their masks. But I remember seeing them because those were the animated ones too, right?
Yeah, the animated ones. It was very
Very
powerful
cool.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chumanapo. So we're connecting back with those artifacts and saying this is part of our culture. It's no, we don't see, they're not demonished, just like, you know, the Westerners told us. So yeah, that's really, and again, for the fact that it's on the blockchain is what makes it even much better. For the
Right.
fact that nobody can go back and change it. You know, it's on there.
It's
So
immutable.
it's really interesting. You know, so yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, I want to say what's up to Sasha and anybody else watching on the live stream. Appreciate you plugging in. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to chime in. It's a really important conversation we're having here about DAOs and the impacts globally, and really NFTs even specifically. But definitely we'll take any questions, love to hear from you. So that's why we do these live streams on Twitch. We are trying to overlap with that gaming community as well, because when I look at the metaverse, I look at Web3, I see the origins in the gaming space, you know, and so my hope is that, you know, gamers will kind of flood the gates eventually. Right now, they haven't quite been convinced on the blockchain side, but I do see an avenue there, and that's why we host this space here. And definitely any questions, we love to hear from the audience, and this will all be live on all podcast networks by this evening as well. But yeah, on that point about NFTs and the impact, and I think we've touched on a really important point, especially for African culture and indigenous cultures, really. I can't wait to see more and more indigenous North and South Americans also using NFTs to preserve their culture, because it is such a huge opportunity. But specifically, you know, in Nigeria, how are you finding the impact of NFTs on the communities? And then how is NaijaDAO trying to, you know, help that grow?
The impact is very powerful, in the sense that, you know, despite all the barriers and shortcomings that the artists in Nigeria face, you know, it's really having an impact. Because, I mean, at some point, you know, this is some of the things I was talking to Art about in New York. At some point, you know, the government bans Twitter, you know. So those artists back there in Nigeria, Imagine Western artists or people trying to promote their work without Twitter. That's insane. So those are some of the barriers that they face, and they have to go an extra mile to go get VPNs and trying to circumvent that system, not to get in trouble for using social media. So, and also lack of infrastructures like electricity, poor roads and all that, so insecurity.
Right.
So those things have an impact, and so that's why for me, I appreciate some of the work that comes out of that, because I understand what they go through to be able to create and be able to compete on the
Right.
Web3 space. So that's why we exist, not just to onboard, but also to spotlight some of this, difficulties and barriers, and try to see how we can impact them, or so the impact is massive, but it would be unfair to speak without highlighting some of these barriers and difficulties that they have to go through to create their work or express themselves.
Yeah.
So, sorry, you wanted to chime in?
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's what we wanted to touch on, and also, and the impact has been very powerful, because in the sense that like we've mentioned, some of the brilliant cases like Alwood's Droid and Osinachi's, and now you have Antonio Zephyr selling out work. Um, and on also going back to his alma mater, going back to school, inspiring all the younger kids, telling them about being an ambassador for the NFT community over there. So it's not just artists, one-on-one artists, or people selling their work. It's just more of like them forming a community. There's gonna be a huge NFT event happening in Lagos this November, which we're a part of, and another entity we'll partner with, sister entity called NFT NG. They're going to be doing a very big convention in Nigeria in this November, and we're going to be there for sure, and we're going to be doing another exhibition onboarding. So just to create more awareness for the project, for the NFT space and the technology, and we're inviting more artists. We're going to see the rollouts. The ads are going to be coming out soon. We're going to be inviting artists, people, traditional artists. We call them traditional artists, people that are just canvas and color, and they put their work out
Right.
for sale. We're going to be inviting them to say, hey, doing live demos and how they can transfer their work to go from looking at it physically to getting it to minting. So we're going to have workshops physically there in November, doing that process and showing that process, recording and showing it to them. And so that's some of the impact that we're going to be seeing, again, in addition to the translation of onboarding materials in local language, which we're going to have displayed on that platform. In addition to that, so those are, and also we're trying to now formalize and start breaking down the political barrier, in the sense that we want to have a representation to the government, saying, "Hey, this is about this." Because it's all about, David. It's all about education. Some of them look at it as, "Oh, this
And
is coming to
reaching out to
replace."
government is so important. They're so out of the
Yeah,
loop, people who
yeah,
actually
yeah,
have the knowledge and can like point directly to the value add for the economy
absolutely.
need to be speaking
They,
to
they,
government.
they see it as a threat. Maybe this is something just coming to replace. They hear tokens coming to replace the naira. No, we say no. That's not what it
No.
is. This is an opportunity for creators to express their work, to be able to sell their work, because that's what they did. In a reaction to that, they created what's called an e-naira, which hasn't gotten any reception so far. But they don't understand that they have to really be in the space. They have to have representatives in the NFT space, in the blockchain space, understanding how this is benefiting the youth, their citizens, and how they can work together to promote it and shelter it. So that's another level of engagement that we're preparing ourselves for. Of course, that will require a lot of funding, but
Yeah.
those are some of the impacts, some of the things that we're looking to accomplish next year and beyond, just to be that force that speaks or represents artists. We're also going to be looking at some. This is like further down the line, some type of bridge partnership community with institutions in the United States and other Western part of the world, to kind of help create programs that would help more training and more advancement of the technology back home. Yeah, so those are some of the things that these are really grand plans that we
Yeah.
think help, help, you know, educate a lot, like thousands of people in the next coming year.
I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed by the ambitious goals of the NaijaDAO and specifically the lobbying side of things. That's the first community-oriented DAO I've heard mention actually reaching out to government directly, and that is so important, and it really is a
David,
no-brainer, and there's no reason not to, especially, I mean, assuming you live, I mean, democracies are there for you to speak
yeah,
your voice, you know?
David, anything you're doing in Nigeria and you're not involving the politicians, you're just wasting your time.
Right, exactly, right. You know, you got to grease some palms, right?
Trust me on that. You're
That's
just wasting.
wild. That's wild. But no, it is a good
Yeah,
direction to take. And that convention you talked about in November, was that like a usual art convention that's just trying to kind of add NFTs and Web3, or is it an NFT Web3 convention?
it's an NFT Web3 convention from the core. It's
Oh,
not. It's like we are the creators of it. We're
nice,
partnering with
nice.
the yeah. So you're gonna see the ads are gonna come out very soon. It's like NFT to the core. It's not like blockchain factoring NFT. No, this is just NFT, and then everybody else comes after.
Cool. And you said the other group helping or you're collaborating with was NFT NG?
Correct.
NFT Nigeria, no doubt.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
super
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
So
you
we're
guys are
like,
really leaning into it, and I'm really impressed by what I've seen. Just individual artists, obviously, like you say, Owo and many others that come out of the Nigerian space, but really leaning into it and formalizing your approach. You've done the right thing, you know, and I'm really excited to see what NaijaDAO does, like you said, in the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But it's very clear you're committed to it, and your community will continue to grow, right? How many
for
community
sure.
members do you currently have for NaijaDAO?
Um, so Twitter, I think Twitter we have about 6 grand, 6 people, 6,000. But we've started collecting actual wallets. So for
Mm.
the DAO, and I think we have about 200 or
Oh
300
wow,
there. Yeah, the last time I checked, we had about 200 wallets that are going to be the DAO
that's pretty
structure.
solid.
Yeah. Not just all Nigerians, there's some Ghanaians and Kenyans and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's bound to happen. And to your other point about the collectors, right? I think if you really want to be able to open the door to collectors, you are going to have to be less like Nigerians only and more like
Yeah,
anyone who
yeah,
wants to support Nigerian artists. You know, come join our DAO and buy some art from our people. You know, that'll
yeah.
probably help you get a bit more collectors in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
What do you
absolutely.
think the
So yeah,
collection side is like in Nigeria? Are there a lot of Nigerian NFT collectors actually buying the art, or do you find that they're mostly selling to Western, maybe people of Nigerian background or African background? But do you find that there's actually like a collector base locally there?
it's interesting. So this is yet to be defined in terms data wise from a data perspective. I think
Hmm.
we have a for sure a strong, vibrant blockchain cryptocurrency community for sure, no doubt. Far now, one of the top in the world, right?
Hmm.
Top countries in the world. So that helped, with the adoption of NFT.
Right.
Yeah. So now try to quantify the amount of actual true NFT collectors in that space. I can't really say, but
Hmm.
all I can say for a fact is, there are people from the cryptocurrency community, Nigerian community that are actually active, I'll call them quote unquote flippers of
Right.
NFTs. So I wouldn't really categorize them as collectors.
Okay.
Because I mean, all the works that I bought, I don't think I've ever sold any artwork that I bought. Just, I just keep them. But I mean, these guys are more like, I think there's a strong group of people that are more like Nigerians that they buy to flip to gain money, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
But I really can't quantify and say, hey, we have a very solid group of. There's definitely collectors out there for sure.
Well, yeah,
I
the
also
reason
think
I
in the
ask,
lower.
yeah, to your earlier point, right, about liquidity and essentially getting artists paid, right? But even more so than that, and I think you hit the nail on the head right there as far as the distinction between flippers and collectors, which I kind of consider myself both. But definitely I see the value in being a true collector and not really worrying about resale. But I do think that NFTs have kind of gamified the trading side of things, you know, and have made it so it's less of a personal kind of like, oh, I'm parting with my art, and more like, if I make gains on this NFT art, I can go buy more NFT art, you know. And it's
Remember,
less of a kind of emotional kind of decision, I think. I don't know. What do you
remember the
think?
royalties the artist gets as well when you
Right,
sell.
exactly. There's the benefit of royalties as well. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's really interesting to see. And from the collector standpoint, like you say, just because there is a big cryptocurrency market doesn't necessarily going to translate into an NFT collector market, right? But yeah, your point about the flipping is really interesting, because if enough people from the blockchain crypto side of things saw the value in that flipping or trading of NFTs and kind of jumped in and really wanted to do that within the Nigerian or even African NFT space, right? Like that would just blow up the whole economy, right? Like flippers in general are a good thing. And I know a lot of artists necessarily maybe don't love the
So,
idea. They
yeah.
don't love the idea of their art being flipped like too much. But at the same time, when you look at the energy that creates, right? If you look at the most popular, the most successful NFT projects, it's because they have a lot of flippers. And you know, it is what it is, but it's a type of energy that comes from it, and a type of economic spin wheel that comes from it. And I do think that if there were more collectors of African art and more flippers even of the African NFTs, the whole economy would benefit, you know? So it's an interesting angle to take.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's you know, the whole essence of behind flipping is for you to gain. So there has to be definite demand for it, you
There does
know.
have to be the demand, yeah. But we create the demand too, right? So it's kind of interesting, because you see some projects out there that are horrible art, but for whatever reason, they've got their gang of degens, you know, maybe 100,
Absolutely,
300,
yeah,
whatever, who will buy up all of this stuff, right? Just because.
absolutely.
And then they'll play their little flipping games with it. And in the end, it helps the project, it helps everyone. So I'm just saying, if we, you know,
Yeah,
we being African people, people of African background, decided to invest in our people in the same way and decided to really gamify the experience a bit more,
yeah.
everyone would benefit, right?
There's a key factor to that sport. The sport that you just described now, there's a key factor to it. And most people, and I've been studying this for a while, a little bit, not a long time, but there's a factor, there's a key factor, there's a thing that plays a role in that aspect, in the sense that there's some money bags that are behind some of those activities that you see,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And yeah, I don't know if you know, they're really, you know, I'm not sure, but you know, the money bags are, you know, they kind of they pick certain projects by certain people to
Mm-hmm.
kind of run sports on it. Yeah, so
Yeah, we've seen
that's
that. So what do you think to the idea that we need more money bags in the African NFT community? Would you agree or disagree with that? Because we know not all money is good money, you know. But to the broader question of creating demand and creating more energy within the space, you know, what would you say to that? Do we need more money bags, more African money bags coming through?
Yeah, absolutely, we do.
Sasha's saying as long as it's a genuine thing, and I agree in part.
Exactly.
I
So,
agree in part,
yeah,
and you know, but in the end, you can't read people's minds. You know, you're never gonna know what is your genuine connection to that art. You know, or do you just see a monetary potential in it? And personally, I think in NFTs is where it's a little different than IRL art. To each their own, you know. If you are buying an NFT because you hope for monetary gain, power to you, good luck. If you're more like you and I, who have come from the art collector background and we really just want to support artists, maybe we resell it, maybe we don't down the line, but it's not the reason we purchased that art, you know.
right, right.
I think both are right. I don't necessarily think that the person buying purely for monetary reasons is necessarily wrong in this NFT space. I think
No,
it's a little bit of a
no,
different world, you know.
no, and that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it, David, because whichever way the artist been,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah, you know, it's just the emotional side of things. Oh, this guy bought my work and he's keeping it, and that's fine. But this guy bought my work, he's selling it. there's an emotional connection from an art perspective, collecting that, but that's okay. But the beauty of it is that regardless of what's happening, the artist is benefiting. Might benefit more, you know, for if the works get flipped 100 times and they get that royalty 100 times
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I don't think the artists from our community, the creators in our community, really care about how if it's flipped or kept. They just want their work to be out there. The more you
Mhm.
flip it, the more eyeballs gets on it. So
Yeah. And when you flip it, the person buying it may not be interested in flipping it, right? And in the end,
yeah,
and there's something to be said about that much vaulted floor price, right? And when there is that liquidity, that demand, your floor price is naturally going to go up, so there's that benefit to it, but definitely should not be the focus. And to your point, I think artists create for artists' reasons. And NFTs and the blockchain have just created this new avenue for you as a creator to place your stuff up there and get yourself compensated for it. And that should be the main focus. And then, any emotional attachments and being able to actually meet your collectors, and having that individual person to person connection is a nice new opportunity in the NFT space, especially from a global perspective. Like Kofi, I love to call him a friend, and he's such an inspiration to me. And that's because of his NFT project. I would not have known about him or even met him or been able to speak to the power of NFTs as clearly if I had not come across his project.
for sure.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. It's interesting. So we've spoken on a lot about the DAO impacts and the NFT impacts in Nigeria and Africa more broadly. Does the DAO have any plans for the metaverse? Are you looking at whether it's selling art in the metaverse, creating a community space in the metaverse? Is that something on one of your ambitious plans there as well, or you're kind of more focused on the events and
No,
the artist promotion?
yeah, it's more emphasis on the artist promotion marketplace. Metaverse, it's we had a 3D convention, a 3D meetup in Lagos, which was very interesting. Like some guys, what's his name? There's some guys within our community that's doing brilliant stuff, man, with 3D.
Nice.
And those are the guys that we had a 3D dimension on. When was this? It was sometime in earlier this year. But man, those are the guys that we kind of it's and the 3D you can look at it now if you go to our website. It's actually you could I think it's an on-site, but yeah, we have a collection. So we already have a collection in the metaverse, but it's all geared towards promoting artists. So our 3D stuff is on Cyber. You could look at it, look at the gallery. So those are the guys that we're looking to champion this effort. I could send you the link. You could
Nice.
check it out. Yeah, but NaijaDAO, the called that exhibition that happened earlier this year, and you could enter the world and then see collection. So we're already in the metaverse for sure. You can see the dancing chibis up here. Um, by what's his name? I can't remember his name. Yeah, and a couple. Cool, yeah, it's up there. I'm looking at it now, really reminiscing.
Trying to find it off
Fun.
their website. How do you get to it on the website?
Okay, for sure. It's when you go to hold up. When you go to NaijaDAO.io,
Mm-hmm.
then you go to exhibition.
Okay.
You see the three dimension?
Yeah, is it metanoia?
No, 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 not
Oh,
metanoia. The
third
one next to it.
dimension. Gotcha, gotcha.
Third dimension. Sorry, third dimension. Yeah. So you click on it, and you go to V Exhibition Gallery and on Cyber. Click on it.
Here we go. Here we go. Jumping into the metaverse here.
Yep, yep, yep.
There
And
we
then go
are.
to
Beautiful, beautiful. That's what I'm talking about. So
Yep,
on
yep.
Cyber is a nice, easy plug and play metaverse. Got some really cool
Absolutely.
art from the community here. Beautiful
Yep,
3D pieces.
yep, 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 yep. So yeah, so this is a smaller scale. We are hoping to, it's just resources, David. I mean, with more resources, we're hoping to expand this during this November event and be able to. So why people, if they can't be there physically, we'll have something that they could enter and be part of it and be able to display our works as well, just like this. But we are. those are some of the plans, and we're just resources is what's limiting us. If we have resources, we're going to do a lot more. So we're already in the metaverse, but it's how to expand this to have more artists be part of it, more people be part of this. Yeah, using on cyber. But
Very cool.
we already this was done like earlier this year, so we're trying to build on efforts like this already because we're already in the metaverse. You can see, yeah, Kel Savage is a very
Yeah, I love his dancing chibis, man. They're
oh
so
yeah,
cool.
I own a couple of them.
Yeah,
There
they're
was
really
one
cool. I should
I
grab
had
one.
to get it. There was a dancing chibi with a droid. I don't know if you know that collection he did.
No, I don't think I've seen that one yet, but it's really cool.
A droid dancing chibi. I purchased one of them. It was so cool, man. So I'm a fan of Cal and what he does. So he kind of spearheaded this 3D dimension, and those guys are good, man, for sure. So
Yeah, he's
we're
been
trying to
killing it.
build on yeah, we're trying to build on efforts like this and make them bigger, and how we can get more sponsorships or attraction and do more based on this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember Kel has the masks too, right? He did some of his own
Oh yeah,
masks. Yeah.
he does masks and all
Yeah, I
that.
remember
Yeah, yeah.
seeing those masks too. Very cool.
He's a brilliant. I own a couple of his works, and he's a brilliant guy, man. So yeah, and another guy Hussein also, he does amazing 3D concept stuff, man. So yeah, yeah,
Definitely super
we're
cool.
we're already in the metaverse, bro. We just need to, expand on some of this stuff
That's
because
what's
this was
up.
over. It's
No,
going to a year. So, yeah.
yeah, that's something. And yeah, just do a few more of those spaces. I would say even you can add it on your link tree, right? Like NaijaDAO community art space, real easy plug and
Sure.
play. Jump in there and check it out. And the cool thing
Yeah,
about those
yeah, yeah.
metaverse spaces is people can jump in there and they like them, you can literally buy it just right there, right? Or bid
Absolutely.
on it or
Absolutely.
whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Very cool, very cool. Well, definitely want to get a chance to talk about your other project that you got, the Bionic Owls. I know we've we've crossed the 1 hour mark now. We got time though. It's a very cool. It speaks to me, as I just mentioned earlier in the episode. I am a gamer. I'm inspired by what's possible in Web3 gaming and the metaverse, and really just gaming on the blockchain. I think it's inevitable. I know we're not even close to it quite yet, but the ones that are available now are very limited, and I have respect for the ones that are taking their time and really trying to build out. So please do tell us a little bit about the Bionic Owls and what your role in the project is. Very cool.
Yeah, it's so I'm the founder of it, and I'm
Nice.
gonna go founder CEO of Bionic Owls. I'm gonna go back and tell you the inspiration of what came about. So growing up in Nigeria, West Africa, I would go out as a kid, go play soccer barefooted with the big kids. We'll go and play other towns and going across marketplaces and all that stuff. So, but of course, my mom would warn me not to go out there, but I'll still go out because that's where the fun is. You know how African moms are, they'll protect you. You want to go out there and explore. So I would see crazy stuff happen. There's people fighting, skulls being split, people beaten to death. And those things was kind of scared me as a kid, like going back home. I'll be like, I can't sleep at night. And I'll tell my mom would say pretty much say your prayers and go to bed, you know. But the prayers still didn't work for me after I said it. But as a kid, I was also taught in school that owls don't sleep at night. And as an innocent kid, I made the connection that, okay, if owls don't sleep at night, they probably are protecting innocent kids while they sleep. And I imagine them as being very stealth, strong, robotic, fighting off all these bad guys, evil guys at night, as an innocent kid, like 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, and all that. So, and the story kind of stuck with me growing up. So I've always had this fascination about owls. I have a lot of books about owls here, and I teach my kids about owl. My wife thinks I'm weird sometimes. So,
That's awesome.
so
You got your
I know.
spirit
So
animal, man. You got your spirit animal.
I know. I love owls, and so I will study them and all that stuff. So the story kind of played out in my head, and I've been kind of fleshing it out. So I have this lore about them, being in a place called the Night Planet, and the human beings were sending on manned ships to kind of explore. You know how human beings are, want to know what's everywhere,
Hmm.
and then boom, they run into this planet called Night Planet, where it's cloaked in darkness. There's never sunlight and all that stuff, and that's where these owls live. And they were able to take them back to Earth, re-engineer them, make them stronger, robotic, to help them, fight or do whatever, go explore more planets. And then in the process, some of them went rogue and in turn want to destroy the humans and eradicate Earth. And some of them remain noble. So we call in the rogue ones RBOs, rogue bionic owls, and the noble ones, noble bionic owls. And that's how come
Nice.
the law.
The rogues and the nobles. I like it.
Yeah, so that's how come that's the essence behind the lore happen, and some of the fightings happen on Earth, the Night Planet, and then the Moon is a neutral place where they come, factions come and negotiate, blah blah blah. So the lore is really deep, and we're trying to we're trying to connect some African concepts and culture into it, while we're
Wow.
still trying to make it a sci-fi futuristic game. And so yeah, that's what it's about. We're positioning it to be a barrier-free access ecosystem whereby you don't necessarily have to own an owl to participate, but you can play. But owning an owl gives you certain perks to play the game.
That's the
Owning.
clutch, right? Make it accessible for everyone, but those who own the Genesis NFT or whatever can get certain benefits, and maybe as a Genesis owner, you might get access to certain assets as well, which you can then sell or trade with other people, right?
Absolutely, that's what we're positioning it to be. Where I just so as of I think 6 months ago, I started talking to people about it, and again, all came from the community. A few guys that I was talking to, Sam being one of them, Chuma being one of them, they're like, okay, guy, you need to put this into a story, try to make it into a game. It looks, and then Sam started doing the website stuff for me, and before you know it, you know another guy, a few guys from the community, Alex came on board. He was like, all right, I'll help you with community stuff. And then boom, we talked to a few guys and we're like, this sounds interesting. Because what's really attracting people towards the project is the personal story behind it. And we're trying to build into a lot of in real life utility to being part of it or owning an owl. It's really interesting. We're finalizing our white paper each deck this week, and the
Wow.
website is on it, bionic.io. We're going to revamp it a little bit, but you could go on it now and see what it's about.
Yeah, I've been showing it to everybody watching here, and it's definitely a real clean website. It looks real nice. The 3D
Yeah,
graphics are beautiful, and I just clicked
yeah,
through to some of the lore as well. You've got the Bionic Owl's story there, so you got some really cool background already. Yeah, it's
yeah,
awesome, man. Really cool.
yeah, yeah,
Sounds like
yeah.
good timing too. If the white paper's ready this week, then there you go.
Oh
Everybody can
yeah,
check
the
that
white,
out. That's
yeah, the white
bionicowls.com, right? Or no, bionicowls.io.
IO. The white paper will be ready by this week, and the pitch deck and all that stuff. So we just did a review of it yesterday. Everything looks good. We just want to add a couple things and make our a bit more realistic. And we're planning an NFT drop sometime in November. So we'll collaborate with a bunch of people that we're going to add up. A lot of people partnerships and all that stuff, like fun people that really gravitated. I mean, it gives me smiles when I wake up sometimes and I'm like, man, this childhood story that I've been playing up in my mind is becoming a project. Like
That's
seriously, like
amazing. I love to hear
it's a
stuff like that.
there are a lot of the partnerships and people that are reaching out want to partner with us and liking the artwork, the logo, and all that. So I'm like, cool, yeah. Yeah, I was in New York City this past summer also. I know I did the NaijaDAO, but I was also at gaming spaces talking about it, networking with people. So a lot of some of those in real life experience in New York, and I kind of transition into actual people wanting to partner with us. Yeah, so it's a fun project of mine that I'm excited to see it grow each day, and people that really we have a couple army groups, people that are just Bionic Army. They just do stuff. We don't pay them. They just create cool shit.
Wow, that's
But
amazing. This is the power of community here. Like, this site is
oh
really,
yeah,
really
yeah,
clean. It's really amazing. So
most,
who built this site
yeah.
for you? Did you build this?
No, I didn't build it. It's one of the community members, like the guy I'm talking about, Sam.
Right.
He's man. The,
That's
the guy
amazing, man.
The guy doesn't talk much, man. But he partner we partner with some Indian guys. But he's good, man. He doesn't. I'm like, dude, you need to do more. Yeah, that's why I put him on the panel for the web smart contract guru stuff with it, because he's a bit of a reserve side, but he has a
Nice.
lot of gold. So I'm always pushing him to kind of be more out there, because he's smart, man. He's smart, and he's part of the Niger NFT community. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
So
And
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
about the project.
the way you've laid out the roadmap is very reasonable as well. You know, starting this Q3 2022 and then Q4, you know, December, January, you got some reasonable
Mm-hmm.
goals. And
Mm-hmm.
how do you feel about the staking side of things? I know I've seen some gaming NFTs trying to make this work, and it seems like it's really it relies on, you know, kind of liquidity coming from somewhere, right, to make the staking really worth it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that part, um, I really can't speak on it much, because we're consulting with a few firms that are advising us on how to take that. Because what we just put there is just a placeholder, but we are
Mm,
consulting with a couple fintech firms that are saying, okay, these are the accurate layout. So we're really, but the all the efforts and emphasis are going towards, creating the artwork, the minting process, and just growing the community, and the growth that we're seeing now. How do we manage it, and towards minting and beyond? So that's what we're kind of focusing on. The staking part is going to come sometime next year, and we're really careful. We're really trying to plan that very well. I know it's
mm.
going to take a while, looking at different options. So I'm not like a DeFi expert, have an
Yeah.
idea, but yeah, I know where you're getting in terms of that liquidity, how to maintain that. There's a couple of locking mechanisms that's been thrown out there that we're looking at, that I can't speak too much, but different ideas to kind of, put some locking mechanism in there, so that way you're able to
Oh, cool.
maintain your
Yeah, no,
cool, yeah.
it's really really interesting, really cool vision, man.
Yeah, if you have any idea, we're more than welcome to bring you on, and
Yeah, no,
so
I definitely
we're hoping.
recommend everybody to go check it out. BionicOwls.io. Yeah, I mean, as a gamer, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on it, and would love to see where you go, and maybe when it launches, whenever next year, sometime, we'll definitely have you back and be able to go through a full demo, maybe, of the game. And yeah,
We'd love
it's
to do that.
it's not an easy lift, right? It's a heavy lift to
No,
try to
it's
get
not.
something like
It's not.
this.
It's not. But not just this is not the inspiration behind it, David. But I was in New York as well, and I attended a couple of gaming conferences, that gaming speaker sessions, and but while I was there, another thing just struck me. Is like, I was just looking around. There's not a lot of people that look like me there.
I bet.
Um, yeah, so I was,
That's it.
I had to speak about VIP badge and all that, but it was just still felt like, man, why aren't there more people that look like me here in this listening to this talk and all that stuff? So yeah, so
Well, it's good. It's good that the story is rooted in your African upbringing. You know, your mother and, and the experiences you had out on the, you know, having fun outside, but seeing things maybe a young kid shouldn't see. And now
absolutely,
you
absolutely.
now you've got this story about the bionic owls who help, or I guess the noble ones help, and the rogue ones are up to no good, right?
Yeah,
That's what's up, man. It's really cool. Thank you for sharing that with us.
no
I don't know if we have
problem.
any questions from the chat. It's been pretty quiet today, but appreciate everybody who's dropped in, and we'll definitely have the podcast live by later today. Final question we always ask our guests before we wrap up here is, you know, how are you kind of reaching out to people who haven't, you know, jumped into the Web3 wave yet? How are you kind of promoting it to those who maybe have skepticism or have been listening to too much of the FUD, you know, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt about blockchain, about NFTs? How are you kind of attempting to pull these people in, or are you?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, interestingly enough, David, some of those people are still active. Some of them are still creators that
Yep.
are looking at us like, what are these guys up to? You know? So I think those are what we consider low hanging fruit for us. Those creators that are seeing what other creators are doing, seeing how other creators are successful in the NFT space. We're reaching out to them, and that's what we're going to use this platform, because we believe especially in Nigeria and Africa, IRLs are more impactful, more powerful than Twitter Spaces. So we've seen that already from all the stuff we've been doing
Yeah,
for the
and I've been
past.
very impressed by the fact that your DAO has been very intentional about trying to host these IRL events, as we've discussed today. You know.
Yes, we see the impact when we do a third dimension. We saw how many people came out physically in that location and how many people followed us after that. So we see the impact of Metanoa in Kenya and Lagos, how many people came there in person.
Mm.
Most of the people that come there, they're not all NFT artists, they're not all NFT believers, they're not all blockchain believers. Some of them are just there, want to enjoy the scenery, to hang out with other artists and talk about what they're really facing. Some of them are there because they're shy. They don't want to. They think people might not hear them very well in spaces, and they want to talk to a fellow artist in real life. So, two, some of them are there just to enjoy the food and the drink.
Right.
Some of them are there just to, just get the vibe. So when they come, and we were talking to all the time, we're having people who have people from NaijaDAO just reaching out, say, "Hey, what's your art? Have you minted?" Oh, well, they will see. Oh, then they'll tell us. They'll tell the others that no, we haven't actually minted. But I'm an artist, but I've been just watching the space. So those are the people that we are actively. So when we have those in real life activities, and we have those materials that are geared towards their local languages, that geared towards their local culture, because Nigeria has a vast number of
Big country.
local. Yes. So when we have those materials there, and we're actually not just doing all the events in one space in Lagos, we're doing it in Abuja, the north, we're doing it in different parts of the country. And we have those materials for them there, it's easier to come to kind of get them over to actually, start the process, or get them to actually start participating actively, minting work and selling work as an NFT artist, versus us just hosting Twitter spaces, hoping that when they hear us, or some of them will come into the space and they won't want to speak for some reason. So
Mm.
that's why we're really hoping on those in real life events, and also getting materials that are a bit locally tailored towards them. Those are the efforts that we feel like that could help capture those guys that are the NFT artists. They're just curious, but they're not participating in the
Right.
space.
Yeah, traditional artists who haven't jumped into the NFTs yet. And I agree. I couldn't agree more. I think IRL is the wave. I think that people seeing other people, even if it's not like huge success, even just being able to sell one art piece on the blockchain, that's one more art piece than you've sold, you know,
Yeah. And
yeah,
that's a
and
validation. That's a
yeah,
validation that the technology works, the
validation.
process
Yeah.
is still real.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And Sasha was asking specifically for an artist who wants to get involved with NaijaDAO, and maybe they're not at the point of purchasing right now. How would you ask them to get involved and support?
So they're an actual artist physically in Nigeria that are not purchasing work.
I believe they'd be in America in this case, of
Oh, okay,
Nigerian
okay, okay.
descent, the diaspora.
Oh, okay. I get it. I get it. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sasha, definitely would like to link up with you. When we're talking about onboarding, right? We want to bring a broad perspective to it. That's why, my participation, or our collaboration with Disrupt Arts, they're mainly an American group, but you know, they're they're giving us a support from an American standpoint, and being of African American descent. There's a connection there we think is very unique, and that's what we're trying to bridge. So we'll definitely, if there's an artist in the US that wants to participate, could also just help us with sharing their story, how they went from being a traditional artist to being an NFT artist, some of their pitfalls, some things to avoid, and things of that nature. Stories like that from an artist would actually help inspire other artists, regardless of where they are. Helping us, plan some of this, collaborative events. Maybe artists meet artists kind of events. That Twitter spaces, and if we're having anything physically in the United States or in the US, she can also help us plan it, and be a speaker, and be an inspiration for us to look up to. So yeah, if there's training materials that she feels like she could share, resources that she could share, that we can in turn translate or get it out to a community. Those are, absolutely welcome ideas. If there's any resources to help an artist, get their work out there more, that's also a resource that would be very helpful. Yeah, anything
Awesome.
that you feel could benefit artists there, we're more than welcome.
Sounds like NaijaDAO likes the tangible support for artists. And I know on NaijaDAO.io, if you go there, you can scroll down past some really cool art, and there's a button there that says "Join Us," so you can try that button there too. It might help you out.
Absolutely.
Or
Thank you.
join
Thank you.
DAO
Yeah.
at the top there. There you go. And there's a whole form here so you can fill out. So
Yep.
there you go.
To copy.
You take that route as well. Very cool. Very cool. I'm inspired. I hope all of our listeners are inspired. Charles, it's really amazing. I love the on the ground kind of tangible things you guys are doing, the real life events, showing people the value of the space, showing people the fact that it's working, that people are really being impacted positively. Like I said earlier, the Dream Conduit that I'm working with is also trying to take that kind of very tangible, how can we reach out to people IRL approach. Are you going to be down in Miami in Art Basel for Art Basel?
For sure.
Yeah, no doubt. So I might be able to run into you again there, because I think we're going to be heading out there for Dream Conduit, and we'll touch base with you in the back channel too. Maybe there's some opportunity for collaboration or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we're way past running into David. We need to plan something concrete for our Basel. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. That's what
Let's
I'm
do it.
about.
Let's make it happen. It's all about showing up in real life and connecting with people. The community becomes much more real. The NFT community becomes so much more real when you're actually in the spaces and learning and educating and connecting in real life. So looking forward to that, most definitely.
Yeah, let me know. Definitely want to plan something with Dream Conduit for sure. We
All
definitely want to
right.
plan.
That's exciting. All right, let's make it happen. Okay, Charles. Well, we'll be in touch. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a lot of really important points I think we've touched on. As I said, we'll edit it down. We'll have the project or the podcast live by this evening. And look forward to any feedback you get from your community. And I will be definitely out there purchasing some art from African artists and Nigerian artists specifically. And I just wish you all the success in the world with your Bionic Owls project. This very awesome, ambitious gamer project. We'll keep watching. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to shout out the team. It's not all. It's. I'm not the only one doing it. I want to shout out my co-founder Chuma and Abado. These guys are behind the scene pulling all the strings. Anita, Ayor. There's a bunch of people. Some of them we've mentioned, Kel, Savage, people that are really doing stuff for the community that are helping out. Some of them are not compensated. Um, I'm not compensated for what I'm doing, and so we just want to, give ourselves a shout out, give them a shout out for what they're doing behind the scenes. They're
That's
not
sweat equity, right? You guys are putting in
Yeah.
the sweat equity for your people, for the community, and because you believe in the technology, right? We see where it's going. We're trying to lead the way. We're trying to bring more people in, trying to create more collectors as well as creators within the space, so that we can all kind of grow and build together. So that's what's up. Appreciate you, Charles. It's been an awesome opportunity. Wish you all the best, and your whole community. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep plugging in, and we'll be watching. So thank you so much. And to everybody out there, thank you for tuning in to Web3 Warriors. We'll be live again next Saturday on Twitch. And until then, we'll catch you in the metaverse. Peace out.